Hello, welcome to another video from the Animal University channel. Let's go for the video. Hummingbird. Hummingbird, any of about 320 species of small, often brightly colored birds of the family Trochilidae, usually placed with the swifts in the order Apodiformes, but sometimes separated in their own order, Trochiliformes. The brilliant, glittering colors and elaborately specialized feathers of many species, usually of the males only, led the 19th century British naturalist John Gould to give many hummingbirds exotic common names, many of which are still in use. Example: coquette, fairy, hill star, wood star, sapphire, topaz, sun gem, and sylph. Hummingbirds are restricted in distribution to the New World, where the greatest variety and number of species occur in South America. About 12 species are found regularly in the United States and Canada. Only the ruby-throated hummingbird, Archilochus colubris, breeds in eastern North America, where it is found from Nova Scotia to Florida. The northernmost hummingbird is the Rufous, Selasphorus rufus, which breeds from southeastern Alaska to northern California. The broad-tailed hummingbird, Escipulates circus, breeds in the western United States and Central America, and the Allen's hummingbird breeds in the coastal regions of California. All hummingbirds are small, and many are minute. Even the largest, the giant hummingbird, Patagonia gigas, of western South America, is only about 20 centimeters, 8 inches, long, with a body weight of about 20 g, 0.7 ounce, less than that of most sparrows. The smallest species, the bee hummingbird, Melissega, sometimes Calypti, Helene, of Cuba and the Isle of Pines, measures slightly more than 5.5 centimeters, of which the bill and tail make up about half. Weighing about 2 g, this species is the smallest living bird and ranks with the pygmy shrews as the smallest of warm-blooded vertebrates. Hummingbirds have compact, strongly muscled bodies and rather long, blade-like wings that, unlike the wings of other birds, articulate, connect, to the body only from the shoulder joint. The architecture of the wing permits hummingbirds to fly not only forward but also straight up and down, sideways, and backward, and to hover in front of flowers as they obtain nectar and insects from them. The rate at which a hummingbird beats its wings is the same during directional and hovering flight. It varies with the size of the bird. The larger the bird, the lower the rate. Consequently, the smallest hummingbirds have extremely rapid wing beat rates. In Califlox amethystina, one of the tiniest species, the male has a wing beat rate of about 80 per second. The female, which is larger, beats her wings at a rate of about 60 times per second. The ruby-throated hummingbird has a wing beat rate of about 70 per second in the male and about 50 per second in the female. The rate is much lower in the larger hummingbirds. The giant hummingbird, for example, beats its wings only about 10 times per second. In fact, the larger hummingbirds appear to beat their wings more slowly than do other birds of comparable size. The hummingbird's body feathers are sparse and often strongly metallic and rather scale-like in appearance. The sexes are alike in appearance in a few species but are different in most species. Males of the latter species display a variety of brilliance and ornamentation rivaled only by birds of paradise and certain pheasants. The most typical badge is the gorget, a bib of iridescent feathers, the color of which depends on the viewing angle. Other specializations include crests, abbreviated or thickened shafts of wing feathers, spatulate, wiry, or flag-like tail feathers, and pantaloons, tufts of puffy feathers on the thighs, usually white. The hummingbird's bill, which is adapted for securing nectar from certain types of flowers, is usually rather long and always slender. In the thornbills, Rhamphomicron and Calcostigma, it is quite short, but in the sword-billed hummingbird, Encifera, it is unusually long, contributing more than half of the bird's 21 centimeters length. The bill is slightly down-curved in many species, strongly so in the sicklebills, Eutoxers. It is turned up at the tip in the allbill, Avicetula, and avicetbill, Opisthophora. Most of the species that have been adequately studied do not show pair bond formation. In the violet ears, colibri, and a few others, pair bonds are formed, and both sexes assume parental duties. In the majority of other species, the male defends a territory, where he displays in flight to passing females with swoops, dashes, and sudden stops and starts. Often he hovers in front of the female, oriented so that the light reflects the color of his gorget. Territorial males chase off hummingbirds of their own and other species and dive at large birds, such as crows and hawks, and even at mammals, including humans. Most hummingbirds, especially the smaller species, have scratchy, twittering, or squeaky songs. In their U-shaped display flights, however, the wings often produce humming, hissing, or popping sounds, which apparently function much as do the songs of other birds. In many species, the tail feathers produce the sounds. The hummingbird's nest is a tiny cup of plant fibers, spider webs, lichens, and moss that is attached to a branch, a forked twig, a large leaf, or a rock ledge. In certain species known as hermits, Phaeothornis, the nest is hung by a narrow stalk from the underside of a ledge or from the roof of a cave or culvert. The nest cup, set on one side of a mass of mud and plant material, is held level by careful weighting of the other side of the mass. The 2 elliptical white eggs, rarely one, are the smallest laid by any bird, although, proportionally, they are equal to about 10% of the female's body weight. They are incubated for about 15 to 20 days. The young, hatched blind, and virtually naked, are fed by regurgitation and fledge in about 3 weeks. The time from laying to fledging apparently is correlated with food supply. Facts about hummingbirds. What foods are in the hummingbird diet? You typically see hummingbirds at nectar blooms and sugar water feeders, but they also eat tree sap and small insects when flowers are hard to find in the wild. Nectar is the high-octane nourishment that fuels hummingbirds, but they also need bodybuilding protein. They spend considerable time hunting and eating the small insects, spiders and other arthropods that provide the vital compound. Thanks to the flyer's amazing agility and the special adaptation that essentially makes their bill spring-loaded sets of chopsticks, hummingbirds snatch insects out of the air. Hovering, they also glean earthbound prey from spider webs, vegetation and other places. Sweet-oozing tree sap has a high sugar content, not unlike nectar, so it's also ideal for hummers, but they can't access it without a little help. Sapsuckers drill holes into trees for their food, creating rows of sap wells. Some hummingbird species readily feast on the sap from these wells. Hummingbirds lap up nectar and sugar water. A casual observer might suggest that hummingbirds use their long, thin, dainty beaks like straws. Their tongues function as a tiny pump to suck the sought-after sweet liquid from feeders and flowers. Each bird has a thin tongue that forks at the tip, springing open to gather fluid, then the tongue retracts as the bill squeezes shut, compressing the tongue and allowing the bird to lap up the nectar. Hummers repeat this 15 to 20 times per second. What color are hummingbirds? Hummers vary tremendously in the color and arrangement of their iridescent parts. Even among the handful of hummingbird species that are widespread in the United States, the array of colors is impressive. The male Allen's and Rufous hummers have blazing red-orange throats. The beautiful male Anna's hummer has an incredible iridescent magenta throat, face, and crown. And the closely related Costa's hummingbird, whose neck feathers taper into long mustache-like points on each side, has a head wrapped in royal purple. What are the colorful patches on their necks? With just a turn of its head, a hummingbird explodes in iridescent radiance. Its gorget, the patch of colorful feathers covering its throat, instantly blazes in shades that span the color spectrum, depending on the species. These dazzling colors come from the feather structure rather than pigmentation. Each iridescent feather has tiny spikes that are densely packed with many layers of microscopic structures filled with air bubbles. These structures reflect light, says Bob Sundstrom, a science advisor for BirdNote, creating color in the manner of sun glinting off an oily film on water. Hummingbirds are aggressive. Despite their tiny size, hummingbirds can be very territorial. They spend a lot of time chasing other birds away from the feeders or flowers they're protecting. Birds that drink nectar tend to be aggressive, Chris says. Researchers' best hypothesis is this: most birds need to find their food hidden seeds or grubs, but hummingbirds feed on flowers that are showy by nature. That means they can see all their food sources, but so does the competition. They evolved to be really aggressive defending that food from other animals that might also eat it, Chris says. How do hummingbirds choose flowers? Another fascinating hummingbird fact: they have superb visual acuity. They see color even better than we do, with their vision extending into the ultraviolet spectrum. Their eyes are adapted to see warm shades better than cooler shades. This ability to easily pick out orange, yellow and red flowers amid a sea of cool green led to the long-held assumption that they prefer red over other colors. Scientists have since learned that the richness of the nectar matters more than the color of its source. The birds are quick learners, and it is nourishment they are after. With the right flowers and feeders, you can attract them to your yard, too. Just make sure you don't have any of these plants hummingbirds dislike. Hummingbirds can hover and fly backward. Stun your friends with these hummingbird facts. No other bird can match the hummingbird for agility on the wing. They can hover in midair at flowers and feeders, and they're the only birds that can fly backward. Their wings move in a figure-8 pattern, which allows them to maneuver with ease. Other birds create the lift needed for flight with each downstroke of their wings. In other words, typical bird flight is achieved by flapping the wings up and down. It's not the speed of its wings that allows a hummingbird to hover, it's the structure of its wing joints. Hummingbirds can rotate or twist the upper arm bones to invert their wings as they flap. This lifts them into the air on both the upstroke as well as the downstroke. The result? They are the most agile birds on the planet. Whirring tail feathers. Soon after Chris Clark, an associate professor at the University of California, Riverside, began studying Anna's hummingbirds, he wondered about their tails. They're these little fighter jets, he says. What are they doing evolving these really long tails that might slow them down? He discovered in his research that the stiff tail feathers of male Annas make song-like sounds. These noises are part of the courtship display as the males dive to attract females' favor. The wings of hummingbirds make different sounds, what Chris calls wing trills. On broad-tailed hummingbirds, the males have this little notch in the outer part of their wings, he says. They sound like a cricket when they fly. Other species, including Alans, Rufus, and to a lesser extent ruby-throated and black-chinned, also have these trills. And in these birds, the trills are in place of songs, Chris says, with males using the sounds to declare and defend territory. Hummingbirds love bird baths. A bird bath with a small mister, bubbler, or sprayer attracts hummingbirds. It's a rare sight, but they might fly through the mist of a lawn sprinklers, too. Hummingbirds meticulously preen their feathers. In that respect, they are like race car drivers who take immense care to keep all parts of their automobiles in perfect working order. Hummers love to take a shower or even a bath using water to help clean their plumage, and they are attracted to gardens with water features, intentional or not. Of course, hummers visit bird baths and other standing water features as well. Hummingbirds have Olympic metabolisms. Hummingbirds actively defend their food sources because they need to feed every 10 to 15 minutes. Flying is an energy-intense endeavor for hummers. In the process, they ingest levels of sugar that would be dangerous to other animals. That's what led Ken Welch Jr., an associate professor at the University of Toronto Scarborough, to study hummingbird metabolism. Hummingbirds maintain a blood sugar level even when they're fasting that would make your primary care physician falter, Ken says. Hummingbirds have highly efficient digestive organs. The sugar gets into their bloodstream quickly, Ken says. The average hovering metabolic rate of an Anna's hummingbird is, gram per gram, about 10 times what an elite human endurance athlete can achieve, Ken says. And that extremely fast metabolism also can plummet when the birds go into torpor to conserve energy or bulk up before migration. They can go from the highest metabolic rate of any bird while hovering, to one of the lowest in torpor, Ken says. A study in hummingbird facts and biological extremes, indeed. I hope you enjoyed this video enough and it was informative. Please like the video and subscribe the channel. Introduce us to your friends. Good luck to you all.